These two contestants are after high stakes, but they'll have to avoid the whammy as they play the most exciting game of their lives. From the Free Enterprise Studios on Twitch, it's time to press your luck! And here's your commentary team for tonight, S-Grunt and the Blue Wizard.
Hey, thanks a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, genders of all ages, I am the Blue Wizard, and let me ask you one question. Are you ready to race?
Come on, no whammies, no whammies, no whammies.
All the Wemmies here this evening. We have our contestants, Possumorpheus versus Rhybon. I am joined in the booth by S-Grunt with dubword tracking and Harumph providing us with the hopefully not dropping internet. How are you doing this evening, S-Grunt?
I'm doing great, and it seems like both of our racers are ready to press their luck in this second game of the best of three series, and the Red Moon Finals. On the left, we have Rhybon, who is up one game and is looking to complete the streak to bring home the victory. And on the right, the defending champion from the Adamant Cup, Possumorpheus, who is looking to keep this going and possibly add a win and force the game 3 here. Both fantastic players of this game.
Both fantastic players indeed, and in this particular matchup, I mean, you make it this far, regardless if it's waxing or waning, you've got to have skills to pay the bills. And both of our runners have shown that in the first race so far. And I'm curious to see what they're going to do this time around.
Yeah, well, we've got a race featuring a Cecil start, which is also true of the last game in this series. It may well be the case that Cecil actually proves to be useful this time around. We shall see. We certainly have a selection of our usual Red Moon selection of rude bosses to take us through the seed this time around, ranging from the old standbys, the Full Gauntlet, the Alt Gauntlet, and Golbez, to the possibly simple, depending on where they show up, such as Dark Knight Cecil, to the relatively rude, no matter where they show up, such as Baigan and Kainatsu. Filling in the rest of the spots, we've got the Mega Sisters, Rubicante, and the D-Lunars.
Yep, and well, I mean, from what I've seen and run of the Red Moon flag set, Cecil's going to be of the more, how do I say, stinky choice of initial team, because you got to get the DKC online first before he really becomes viable.
I mean, if we take Possum's word here, tell us the stinky one. But yeah, I could argue that Cecil's probably the most challenging of the 3 starts. Edge, especially in the Red Moon flag set where he has his normal complement of starting equipment, can just go forth and demolish the overworld at his pleasure. We'll slow down a little bit in the late game, depending on what equipment you end up finding in the rest of the seed. Fusoya, of course, when he shows up in the Red Moon flag sets, can just go ahead and bonk things and earn spells up until the point where he can just also demolish the early game unto itself. Alright, it looks like we are underway here. So we've got Cecil taking the stage.
No whammies.
No. I would call that a whammy.
That is
well,
a whammy.
That's Edward as the second starting character. We do have Dark Knight Cecil, one of our required bosses, as the boss in Baron Castle here. No key item from the start, so this is going to be this is going to make for an interesting start, I think. I know that at least Possum has professed a certain inclination towards not checking the starting characters too soon, but we might be seeing more of that this time around, just given the relative lack of power that the starting party is presenting us with.
Agreed, and I know some people like to speak things into existence. I would like to note for the record, I was thinking Edward start. I'm over here going, I want to see an Edward start. Speaking of character selections, we see both of our runners going into the same check, into Mysidia, getting a Tella, and is that a Porum?
That is a Porum. So we've got the White Mage at least. I can't imagine that either of runners is going to be particularly pleased to see that Tella, not because Tella is not a useful character, because Tella is a very strong utility character once you've, at least after you've powered enough from going mount ordeals. But the presence of Tella early on in the seed lends some credence to early game D machine strategies if a Darkness Crystal happens to turn up, and I can't think that either of runners are particularly pleased to be contemplating that right now.
Yep, and I was actually just discussing Tella earlier with someone, and the fact that Tella starts with exit, for instance, is a huge, huge advantage to our runners, because when you go dive antline, or maybe if you decide to check a few more chests in Watery Pass, you just pop that exit, you're gone.
Yeah, certainly that early game guaranteed exit is very handy for certain looting patterns. We have Rhybon in Damsian Castle. This is both for a loot check and to launch the hovercraft, which will need to go down the required hook route. Possum, on the other hand, is at Mount Ordeals, presumably intent on at least checking the character here, which is Sid, but should Possum go on to complete the rest of Ordeals, which is not happening right now because we just don't have the power to do that right now. But the completion of Mount Ordeals will power up both Cecil, turning him into his paladin form, and Tella, giving him his full list of spells. We have Rydia in Damsian Castle as our 6th character.
Yep, and knowing Possum, he likes to do things rather efficiently, so he might just be going in. Well, I was going to say a loop, but and not sticking the landing to go and check that next character. Possum, back to flight school with you there, buddy.
Yeah. Well, we all need to visit to flight school every now and again. Possum is now in Watery Pass. This is the 7th and final character check we'll be seeing, so in just a moment we'll see the entire cast of characters for the seed, and that is Kane. So we've got a variety of characters. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some slightly different party compositions between the two players, given who we've found so far.
Agreed, and also to make note that on Possum's side,
there goes Cecil.
Interesting. He did pick up the Black Sword, which does give the bonus to stats and the Bacchus, so that actually is rather decent.
And there goes the other Cecil. Looks like a certain agreement from the first game might have carried over into this game.
Entirely possible. So what was that you were saying about very party comps?
Okay, there's Rhybon exiting out from Watery Pass as Possum just did. There's that Tella exit utility in action. Possum also heading to Damsian for the loot and the last character check. Rhybon taking us to our first key item check in the form of Atline Cave here in just a couple of moments.
Yep, a little bit of divergence as we see Possum going into Damsian basement, getting his Blizzard Spear for that Kane. I'm definitely going to make use of that against Rubicon.
Yep, absolutely. Alright, Rhybon heads into Atline Cave. There is a fair amount of loot to be found in Atline Cave. Opinions vary as to exactly how much looting you want to be doing in here. Rhybon does take the first 2 chests on the left, which are relatively easy to get to. Might open the one more that he's going to walk right past here in a few moments. He does, and takes the shortcut just to head directly to the end of Atline Cave. Now, there's a lot of opinions as to how much looting you want to do at basically anywhere in the seed. Most of the highly skilled players, I think, will be leaning on the side of less looting, but that's some purple robe. That's some form of Mylon, and it is Mylon Z that guards our key item in Atline Cave.
Yep, and we see, and actually speaking of looting chests, I feel like in Red Moon, there's a pretty common factor of just not having enough money, and so I feel like it's a lot of the time it's going to be chests on the way, not too much in the way of shying away from the path of whatever objective that you're trying to do.
Yeah, it's a matter of speed. That was an offensive use of Akira 3 against that Mylon Z, which is not something that comes up very often, but it's very useful, and that's the Legend Sword from Atline Cave. While that's not something which directly leads to one of our objectives, of course, because our objectives are all boss hunts. In the Red Moon flag set, as with the Blue Moon flag set, we do have Supersmith on, meaning that if we find the Adamant Rock and turn them both in later on, we will get a weapon that's normally exclusive to the Game Boy Advance version of Final Fantasy IV as a reward for doing that forge.
Yep, and the Legend Sword can be equipped, so until, or even if you don't find any Excaliburs or crystal swords, it's still a holy stick of sorts for Pally Cecil when he gets online.
Yeah, well, that requires us to have a Pally Cecil. Rhybon, having checked the top of Mount Hobbs, finds one of our objective bosses, the Mega Sisters, sitting on top of Mount Hobbs. This is good news for Rhybon. I have seen that it's not uncommon for runners to forget to check Mount Hobbs and the quote unquote free boss that's here in this flag set, just due to the lack of the character check here with the Xeno flag on.
Yep, and honestly, the sooner that you can find your objectives, well, honestly, the better.
Yeah. How long the seed takes is going to depend on, the distribution of bosses, at the risk of stating the obvious. Possum is also landing at Hobbs, and we'll be finding the required Mega Sisters here as well. This is a little bit sketchy of a fight for Rhybon right now, and in fact resets out of it, having those two characters. Having only two characters up, looks like he's going to just leave and come back later. Possum is entering this fight. We'll see if he has a better time of it.
Yeah, kind of curious to see, much like we were talking about before, the Red Moon Flag is going to go ahead and showcase a wide variety of skill sets about how routes are taken, how mechanics are applied. And
Yeah.
we see that showcase with Possum going ahead and using a kamikaze from Sid, which is actually going to be almost 800 damage, which early game is a lot to put out.
And we see, Porum's been charmed here, which is fine.
That's fine.
There can be some fairly bad charm procs that land there. Like if you have Palom with Quake or Meteo even, that can demolish your entire party in short order. Something you have to watch out for. As pointed out in chat, we do find carrots in the Fubul shot, very important to at least some of our viewers. At the Fubul defense, we find the Kaipo officer and soldiers attacking Fubul here. This is one of the relatively free fights in the game. This is one of several fights where we're not going to see this come into play in this exact fight necessarily, but none of these enemies have the boss bit set, so you can use coffins, you can use sop, you can use hourglasses on them. Depending on the tools that you've got available to you, this fight can go extremely quickly.
Yep, and with this particular fight, you really only have to take out the officer, or just in Rhybon's case, the 3 soldiers that are with him, because he'll just kind of turn tail and run.
Yeah, so interesting things happen in this fight depending on who you kill first. If you kill the 3 soldiers first, the officer will run away, as you just saw. If you kill the officer first, the soldiers will get confused and just start attacking each other. So maybe they don't know what to do in the absence of their commanding officer, get confused. But Rhybon's through that fight as Possum slowly catches up here as well. So that's the tower key from that check. That'll be interesting when we get underground, as that makes it more likely that both of our runners will just immediately check tower if they didn't otherwise have a reason to do so. Now, notably, while Possum appears to be a little bit behind at this point, is up the Mount Hobbs check and the one objective at this point, which Rhybon will need to go back for at this point. So this is still fairly even right now.
Yep, although I think Possum is going to have a little bit of an easier time at the moment, mostly because he did take out those Mega Sisters, getting a little bit more levels on his characters. And also to kind of note, on the way down, Rhybon did stop and pick up that autopilot chest from the king, picking up a headband, which headband early on is actually going to, increase the damage output very nicely.
Yeah. A lot of the time I find that the early game experience from like the Hobbs check or the Mist check or similar isn't necessarily going to be enough to make much of an early game distance unless your starting party is extremely weak as it is, which admittedly is the case with just that starting Cecil and that Edward, but I think we've made up that difference by now. And in fact, Rhybon is now in a position where he, having seen that Sid is now atop ordeals with that Sid in his party and is about to embark on the first of 3 bosses that we find up here. Survey says that's the Baron Guards. We know this because we have just seen the Hypo Guards. This is technically another one of those free fights. However, if you don't have the means of instantly dispatching these guards, they will counter physical attacks with mini, which size is how this was initially translated. So a physical attacking party member who gets minied is not going to be able to hit for very much damage. They counter magic attacks with Piggy, which disables almost all of your spells.
Yep, which is the reason why most runners will go ahead and either mute those guards or cast size on them themselves.
Yeah. Well, here we see Rhybon relying nearly exclusively on Kane's jump ability, which does not trigger those counter attacks. So, rather a heads-up play in doing so here. And there goes the first guard on Rhybon's side.
And on Possumorpheus' side, we do see him getting into the fight himself.
Yeah. Question from Chad: who are the starter characters today? They were Cecil, joined by Edward. And amusingly, neither of those characters is in either of these parties right now.
Yeah, we do see a lot of similarities between the two, just to kind of showcase what level of playing or what style of playing they both have.
Yeah, we see Possum using a few items here. Those swings from Sid and those jumps from Kane are bringing out the damage significantly faster than we're seeing from Rhybon here, I think. So Possum is now also through this fight, and it's basically just that save away from catching up again. Ooh, and that's a blue robe, and that long delay means that we have found the alt gauntlet. The back attack alt gauntlet is, as I always like putting it, the only threat is to your time, because all 5 of the fights in this gauntlet are back attacks, as a result of the position we're in. One fight has 7 enemies in it. They will all get their attacks in, for the most part, before your party has the chance to do anything. So this will take a fair amount of time to get through here.
Yep, and, this will actually give our white mages something to do.
Yeah, because as with Mounter deals in the vanilla game, all of the enemies in this gauntlet are undead. So most of them are undead. Some of them are resistant to flame, for example, as with the souls that you're going to see in this particular way. But the curative spells that the white mages have will deal damage to most of these enemies.
Yep, which it wasn't until after I started playing the Free Enterprise randomizer that I learned that Lamias up here are weak to cure spells.
Yep, it's a good feeling when you've got, say, an edge for this particular gauntlet, or for some of the other particular fights, or even some of the other gauntlets here, because apart from those souls, you can just have them cast flame, and it'll probably wipe out one of the like an entire wave of enemies here, even the Lamias.
Yep, and we see on both sides the Rydia is just lying on the floor taking a nap.
Yep. So why would Rydia be taking a nap here?
Well, that could be for a couple of reasons. It could be that because on the Overworld you do want to have your faster agility characters in the mid-center slot to go and make everything go zoom that much faster. And it's for Rydia being at base level, she'll have a lesser agility. So this way you can have better real-time agility going on. Words are hard, apparently. Or, in the event that either of our runners go ahead and do a D-money grind and want to get Rydia up to Nuke or Medio, she'll be in a perfect position to be Slingshot.
Yep. Both perfectly valid reasons to have Rydia on the floor here, but I believe this is the last fight in the this is the second last fight for Rhybon. This is the 7 enemy wave. But yeah, one of the quirks of this was the very first Final Fantasy game to have the ATB system built into it, and there's some very interesting quirks with its implementation. Probably the most interesting thing about it is that the way I like describing this is that there's an effective cap on how fast your characters and how fast enemies can go, and how fast your characters move is relative to, at least in Free Enterprise, at least in this flag set, will be relative to the character that's in the center slot here. So if the character in your center slot is especially slow, basically everything else, your party members, the rest of the enemies on screen will be moving much faster, if not as fast as possible. So for a lot of late game fights where the bosses are moving significantly faster than your party is, you want a slow party member in the center slot, and you want your party members to be fast relative to them so that they move as fast as the bosses will.
Yep, and there are some variants to that, such as like with the Behemoth fight, you don't want a slow center slot anchor. You actually want a fast anchor to go ahead and slow down the Behemoth.
Yeah, the Behemoths move very slowly. They don't attack on the Behemoths are designed mostly to attack by counterattacks. If you have a slow central party member, they'll actually get more actions as a result because they are so slow. So you want to have a fast party member to deprive them of those actions and have them attack exclusively through counterattacks. The other aspect of it is, of course, if you have a sufficiently fast anchor, as we refer to the character in the center slot, or whoever has the highest priority for this purpose, if they're fast, they're going to be able to outspeed most things in the overworld and give you more actions anyway. Same basic concept, just much earlier in the game. We do see that Possum has gotten through that gauntlet ever so slightly faster than Rhybon has, making up a little bit of time there.
Yep, just a little bit, and I anticipate that Rhybon will be maybe roughly 30 seconds behind. And that's mostly because of RNG, just gonna be random and take down the Borum for a little bit longer than probably would have liked.
Yeah, random gonna random sometimes. So entering into the mirror, we're gonna get the key item from this check first, which is a rat tail. So once we found that hook, that rat tail itself is a key item check. And Octomammoth is the boss in the room here. So very few bosses in the mirror room will pose much of a threat. This is meant to be a cinematic scripted fight with Dark Knight Cecil in the vanilla game. So this spot doesn't have much in the way of health. It can even be taken down by most solo party members if you've got the Sea Hero flag on. Octomammoth is not one of the bosses which poses a threat here.
Nope, but it is kind of ironic that Octomam would be here because Octomam, oddly enough, has a holy resistance.
Yep, as a quirk of it's intended that Octomammoth is weak to darkness attacks because at the fight in the game where you normally fight Octomammoth, one of your party members is Dark Knight Cecil, who, of course, all of his weapons, or at least his later weapons, have the darkness element. So as a quirk of making Octomammoth weak to those dark weapons, he gains a resistance to holy weapons.
Makes perfect sense.
And it's, as being pointed out in chat, it's possibly the reason that Tella is so happy to see Dark Knight Cecil to help him on his quest there, because DKC is uniquely suited to take on those bosses. Alright, but Possum has left Ordeals. Let's see where he goes next here. We still have some overworld checks that need to be done right now. We don't have the hook in hand. Baron Inn seems like a logical next step, which seems to be where Possum is going.
Yep, because depending on your characters and who gives you what, I mean, honestly, just kind of going around in a giant circle.
Alright, we have Ashura in the first boss spot here, which is a good thing. Ashura can be fairly finicky to deal with in some boss spots, because of its health healing abilities. There's a few tactics that you can use to take out Ashura, no matter where Ashura turns up. Fortunately, with this spot having something like 600 health, we're not going to need to see any of them. We can just have cast a virus and be done with it. And yes, as being noted in the chat, the second fight here, which is with CPU, as it turns out, there is no experience for this particular boss spot. So you can keep all of your party members up and not have to worry about them gaining experience and gaining levels. So normally, this boss spot can hit fairly hard physically. You don't want to do something like the Baron Guards that we saw here earlier, because they can wreck your day if you're not sufficiently prepared for it. CPU being here is a bit of a blessing, really, because the only attack that the entire formation can do is Mazor from the Attacker Orb, which deals 10% of your party's maximum hit points. So it's not really a threat, and we can just whack it until it dies, more or less.
Yep, and unfortunately, chat, there will be no orb grind in this particular fight because of no XP.
Yeah, so if you're pondering the orb grind, we can't do that here. I mean, you can bring the orbs back. You're just not gonna get any extra experience from it.
Yep, it's fun to do, but it's not going to be worthwhile. Not this time.
Yeah, so Rhybon pulls out the Meteor for this fight. That is swag right there.
And that's going to put Rhybon ahead of Possum by, well, now only a few seconds.
Well, in terms of this fight, yes, that's the Earth Crystal we get from this variant pick. That is a welcome sight. The Earth Crystal is affectionately known as the Party Rock in some circles, because in most flag sets, you get 2 character checks, which are not applicable in this flag set, but you still get the other benefits of the Earth Crystal in this flag set, which is the key item check at Zot 2, the 2 boss checks you get from going to the top of tower. Technically, only one of those is gated behind the Earth Crystal, but many people are not going to want to go up Zot to check that first boss spot, because they then need to walk back down again. But you also have access to the Troya Treasury, which is 18 chests of, well, often one of the best, one of the highest weighted loot spots in the game. So while we see Possum hitting there immediately, Rhybon is also checking one of the 2 quote-unquote free boss spots in Mist Cave, and finds Evil Wall there, which is not one of the bosses we're looking for. Alright, and Possum, to our joy, is getting ready to send us into one of our viewers' favorite game shows.
Yep, that's Wheel of Fortune, right?
It's time for Rate That Treasury, and I see a rune axe among the other things we pulled. A mute knife, that'll be handy. Those would have been very nice for the Ashura fight that we needed to get through in order to get into that treasury. Those are probably the most notable things that we found in there. So that's sort of mage mashing out of 10.
Yep, I was gonna say, or bosses we've already beat out of 10.
Well, I haven't seen all of the Mage Week bosses at this point. We're close, but we still technically have the Ruby form of the Elephants fight to contend with if we want to hit things with rune axes and mute knives.
Yeah, you know, I feel like maybe the rune axe is just you know, the fry pan that you get from Sheila with etchings on it.
Yes, the runes, obviously. But Possum is heading up Zot, is opening chests on the way up Zot, is looking for this exact chest, which has the Flame Dog in it. The trap chest in Zot will get is one of the opportunities you'll get to have a high quality trap chest item, which is generally better than the loot you get from opening regular chests, especially on the T-Pro setting that we have in the Red Wing flank set. Rhybon, on the other hand, is just heading straight up the tower here, so we'll see if this is a worthwhile chest for Possum to have opened here.
Survey says, dun 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 dun, Masamune. That is for a character we do not have.
Yeah, we can sell it for a fair amount, but that's about the only use it's going to get. And for those paying attention in chat, yes, that is the vanilla location of the Flame Dog chest. Alright, Rhybon has made it to the save point in Zot in just a moment or two. Once Rhybon has finished doing this equip, we're going to see who the first of the 2 Zot bosses here is. This is the boss that's normally available without the Earth Crystal.
Yep, and still, we see our runners just without that Pally Cecil. You know, I would think that maybe with like a headband, the rune axe, karate gi, you know, that Cecil would hit pretty hard, but not.
We have a cane, we have a cane, we have a save. We've got plenty of people that can swing that rune axe. That's a Lunar Sparkle. This could be our D-Lunars if we're lucky. And it's not. It's just Plague.
I try to avoid it.
Yeah. I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Plague is depending on where you want it, depending on where you see Plague, can be a bit of an annoying fight. Plague doesn't deal damage directly. Its only 2 moves are Count, which puts this 10-second, well, quote-unquote second, 10-tick timer of variable length, which once it counts down to 0, subject to certain conditions, will kill the party member it's on top of. Normally, when you see it elsewhere in the vanilla game, it's a single target attack. Plague is unique in that it has the group cast version of that. its other ability is to attempt to cast Fast or Haste on your party members, which, funnily enough, doesn't do anything but get your party more turns, because the speed of your party members doesn't affect this attack. There's a few ways you can go about solving this fight. We see Forum there keeling over. You can just hit it before the count expires. You can put up a Star Veil on one of your party members, which, since Plague sees that there's a count that's not on one of your party members, it will just cast Count again and try and get that on. In fact, will reflect Count onto itself, which under certain conditions can actually kill Plague before you can. Reviving a dead party member has exactly the same effect here. Or, if you've got none of those, but you've got a sufficiently fast party, you can, in fact, berserk most of your party members, or just hold down the A button in some cases, and effectively your party becomes too angry to die, because the action that is supposed to kill your party members when the count expires can't trigger when your party is acting fast enough.
Yep, and now that we are at that particular cutscene, Rhybon, Escrant, what level of knowledge do you have in pig meta?
Oh, I'm all about the piggy lore at this point. So pay very close attention to the pigs as Rhybon enters the second room here. We see that the pig has white ears. Why is this important, you ask? Because the palette of the pigs that you see in this room is the same palette that the boss in this room will get. So white ears indicates, white ears is actually, if I remember correctly, the default palette. So anything that's like a Lunar Sparkle or a Red Sprite or even Dark Knight Cecil, who we've already seen, of course, will be one of the bosses here. It's Antlion. So that certainly fits into that category.
Yep, and we see him not in his native home on the moon.
Well, to be fair, this is about as close to the moon as you can get while still being somewhere in the vicinity of the blue planet.
Yep, he just got confused by the tile set. It's okay.
Yeah, it's a mistake any of us can make. So Antlion, of course, will also counter most physical attacks. Fortunately, we have Kane's Jump, we have Tella's Magic. We don't have too much to worry about other than needing to tank Antlion's physical hits here.
Yep, and we see Possum just getting into the fight.
Yep, we see some Berserks coming out. This will result in party members taking some counters on Possum's side. This will be a little bit slow, possibly, but these are going to hit hard enough that we're probably not going to need to worry too much about what Antlion is going to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, with characters like Kane and Sid, it's not going to matter as much because they do have, on average, well, Sid has much higher HP pool than, I want to say, actually, I think he has a higher hit point pool than Yang.
I believe, ultimately, in the end game, Yang has a higher hit point total than Sid does. I could be wrong about that. I'd have to go and look at the numbers. But Rhybon is through the Antlion fight. I can't imagine it's going to be particularly long before Possum will be through this fight as well. So, after a bit more of a cutscene, well, we're going to get that key item check. But this is also the point in the game where Rosa would learn Exit. Funnily enough, Rosa learns Exit before that boss fight, as soon as she would normally rejoin the party in the middle of the game, but can't actually use it until afterwards.
Yep, because, plot.
Yep. Alright, and that is the hook we get from the Zot check. So we finally found our underground axes after exhausting everything else on the blue planet that we have access to right now.
Yep, and speaking of being able to access things, we see Possum through that fight as he made quick work of Antlion.
Alright, Rhybon goes to the waterfall to check the boss hero to the other free overworld boss spots. That's Bahamut. That's not one of the bosses we're looking for. Would be a relatively free fight, but it's not going to be worth the time that it would take to get through it at this point. Unless you really wanted those waterfall items right now. So we do have a rat tail to turn in, which is what Rhybon appears to be doing right now. But after this, our next objective is going to be, our next destination, rather, is going to be some combination of Cave Eplin and Castle Eplin. Unless this is itself something extremely important. That's the Darkness Crystal. Half an hour into the seed, we have a Darkness Crystal. That opens up quite a few options for people. There is the possibility of, if we really need more experience now on these party members, you have the option of taking that Darkness Crystal and going up to the Giant and starting a grind of some sort. I doubt we're going to see that at this point. This isn't. I would say this isn't a party which is necessarily well suited to that grind, unless we want to slingshot that Riddy as we were contemplating the possibility of earlier.
So there is an opportunity here to grab that Cecil and slingshot him.
That's certainly possible. I mean, we do have an Eddie in reserve, but we don't have a spoon yet. We don't particularly have any good equipment for Edward, so we're probably not going to be taking him. Rhybon is launching the whale here, possibly as is relatively popular in the community, taking a few minutes to think about what his next move is, so as this particularly long cutscene plays. There's the giant option. The moon itself, while it has some of the most challenging boss spots in the game, does hold, on the moon itself, 6 boss spots. By the Giant of Babel has 2 more boss spots for a total of 8 that are gated by the Darkest Crystal. In this flag set, also will gate key items behind all of those boss spots, except for the ones of the Giant, of course. And we do see Rhybon heading up to the Giant.
Yep. A couple things from chat. That at level 99, Yang has less hit points than pretty much everyone else. And you know, that does beg a different question. Did Rhybon not go back to Hobbs?
Nope. Rhybon has not gone back to Hobbs yet.
Not necessarily a bad thing. You know, if you get the pass and you still need that last boss check, you just pop down to the Overworld, go take it out. But at least having the knowledge that the Mega Sisters are there, it's good to, you know, have that kind of in your back pocket.
Alright, we see Possum wandering around outside of Baron right now looking for encounters. What do you suppose he would be doing here?
Oh, I know for sure he is setting up for the D-Machine manipulation.
But why isn't Rhybon doing that then?
Rhybon could have other plans.
Yeah, so what we are about to see most likely dueling D-Machine grinds here between us. It is, as is being pointed out in chat, as chat has beaten me to the punch, of course. There are several different ways that you can manipulate the encounters that your party is going to see based on some step charts in order for you to find the encounter of the single searcher and 2 beamers, whereupon the searcher will summon the D-Machine and enable the grind to take place. The one that Rhybon is using at this very moment is based upon you wandering around the Giant. There's a chart of steps which you can see where if you, depending on how many steps you take before an encounter turns up here, will be used as a guide to determine how you're going to be finding that D-Machine encounter. Possum, on the other hand, is electing to use a similar chart for encounters outside of Baron, which was originally designed for the case where you can't run from encounters, because, of course, the encounters inside of Baron are the easiest to defeat in the game. So the very first encounter that Possum finds on the Giant is going to be the encounter he's looking for. Rhybon, meanwhile, will need to take a couple more encounters to get this fight started.
Oh, so horseman grind, right? That's what he's doing?
Yeah. Well, I think while I would love to see a horseman grind, I think neither of our runners is looking for that right now. To answer another question from chat, why aren't we using Cecil? My best guess at this point is that it's a continuation of agreement that we know to exist from the first game, where the agreement was to ditch the starting character, no matter who it was. We'll certainly be asking that afterwards.
Yep, because I mean, you know, I am here for it, and I do appreciate something like that. As you know, we all enjoy seeing Pally Cecil go burr with a shiny stick or holy stick, or you know, crystal this and exile that. But take away that, and then you get to kind of get creative.
Yeah, well, I mean, with the number of Fusoya starts that Possum has had over the course of the tournament, I would understandably be delighted to have an opportunity to ditch a starting Fu if we turn up again.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah, alright, so Rhybon has found the desired encounter, and Possum has now also found the D-Machine, D-Money encounter. So Blue, what are we about to see here?
We are about to go ahead and see, well, Rydia take another nap for starters, but we are about to see from the Searcher what would normally be just a random enemy, but because both of our runners have gone ahead and set up an encounter manipulation, when they hit that Searcher, whether it's with an attack or a J item, that Searcher will spit out a very specific enemy. That specific enemy is going to be the D Machine, which our runners will then go ahead and be using the spell Weak On to take it out within hopefully one hit. If form doesn't hit it.
Yeah, it's not often brought up, but the Searcher needs to be alone in order for hitting the Searcher to summon the D Machine here, which we are now seeing on Rhybon's side.
Yep, and to which our runners will go ahead and use for starting their quote-unquote D Machine money, or D Machine/D Money grind.
Alright, so what might our runners be looking for here as a result of this grind? What's the general goal of a D Machine grind? Or more specifically with this party, what do you think they're going to be looking for here?
So, I know that our runners, to quote, specifically, actually both of them, the idea of grind early, grind often, and what they're hoping for. Are you talking about specifically out of this fight?
Yeah, with this party composition, what might we be grinding towards here?
Well, I mean, definitely we want Cure 4 on Porum, and we want enough levels to just go blow up the moon. Yeah,
I think specifically, we've got the same party composition between both runners here. We have a level 1 Rydia, which we talked about slingshots earlier. So if the two lowest leveled party members in your party have 5 or more levels less than the third most leveled party member in your party, they actually gain double experience from fights. You can use that in combination with a single fight that gives a lot of experience, such as this D Machine encounter, to propel them up to very high levels in a single fight. So what are the objectives here? If we see Rydia be picked up here, as we're seeing on Possum's side, we're probably intending to bring Rydia all the way up to the ability to cast Nuke, which is one of the last spells that she learns.
Yep, and however though, without 10 key items, that is a long, long grind.
Yep. Normally it would take basically the entire vanilla game to take place. However, both of our runners are experienced enough to the point where they know, even without 10 key items, exactly how many of these D Machines they need to kill in order to get Rydia the amount of experience that she would need in order to get to Nuke. As is being pointed out in chat, that's going to be a total of 12. However, with the life glitch in play, that's why you see... So, you see, like on Possum's side right now, a life potion coming out on the D Machine that was just killed. What that does is all enemies in the game have a vitality stat of 0. When you use the life potion on something, it brings them back with 5 times their vitality stat. Since they don't have a vitality stat, they come back with 0 hit points and die again immediately, and you get credit for a second kill of that enemy. So, while we need 12 in total, we often break that down to 6 kills and 6 life glitches, 6 plus 6.
Yep, and if I recall, there's a difference between using just Life 1 and Life 2.
Yeah, Life 2 will bring the enemy back with full hit points and give you the opportunity to kill them again if you so choose.
Yep, and in a setting like this, that's not exactly something you want to do.
Yeah,
but you can still go ahead and do triple lives.
Yeah, like you can sneak in an extra... If you time things exactly right, you can get 2 life potions off on a single enemy. There are certain fights where you actually do want to use Life 2, because you can bring them back again, and that gives you the opportunity to kill them again and get even more life glitches off. You kill them again, and you get even more Life 2s or Life 1s off, and you can just grind indefinitely with it. But it looks like Rhybon is through, does have the Rydia up, has the Tela down, so that he doesn't get the experience from it. We're going to see Rydia learn Nuke here in just a moment. We have a lot of spells to learn here.
for somehow, some way, some reason, I feel like this this D-Money grind went a little bit faster than it has in previous runs I've seen.
Oh, it's but these runners are experienced enough to know exactly how. It's very much a routine once you've done enough of these, and both of these runners have done it enough that they know how that routine goes by now. Okay, so Rhybon is through his D-Machine grind, saves his game, is doing a little bit of spell setup. I believe we are about to see Rhybon go and see who the bosses in the Giant are.
So any particular bosses you're hoping to see here?
Oh, I'm hoping it's Kenatsu, personally, because you love to see it, but you hate to see it.
Yep, I know that I personally, well, Calbrena dolls.
Okay,
So-
but there's definitely far worse things you could see here, but this is these are still going to have the elements spot. It has the single most hit points in the game. Normally, most enemies in this spot will actually run up against that, totaling to 65,000 health. If you have a split enemy, such as a Calbrena here, the total amount of health that this spot can have can actually go over 65,000. Now, I don't know the exact numbers for dolls here specifically, but we might be sitting here for a few quakes.
Yep, and actually even as we see on Rhybon's side, using the perfect hourglass placement, as the back row or the back dolls do not have the boss bit on, so you can do things like hourglass and stop them, or turn them into toads. Because if they're under any status effect like that, they won't actually turn into the Calbrena single doll.
Yeah, it's not every status effect. Notably, the one ability you can't use here to prevent the transformation is Mute, funnily enough, because the transformation is not a spell, it's just a monster ability, which can still be used under Mute.
Which is perfectly understandable. But anything that would otherwise encumber their ability to turn into the single doll would, just make your life a little bit easier, because nobody likes to see the little dolls turn into the big doll, and then if you spend enough time on it, turn back into the little dolls, and
it's not a matter of time with the big doll. You have to get it into a very specific HP range with a physical attack in order to get to transform back into the little dolls. It's very rarely seen. But Possum is through his D-Machine grind. We're going to see seeing Rydia get nuke here as well. And Rhybon finds the second giant boss is our favorite resident heckler, Golbez.
Trollbez.
Yeah.
I know him well.
Yeah. Alright. So Golbez, the fight that Golbez the boss in Free Enterprise is based on is the encounter with Golbez in Dwarf Castle in the vanilla game, which the original fight is very scripted. Where Golbez is immune until he has the opportunity to cast Hold Gas and summon his Shadow Dragon to slowly kill your party members until only Cecil is left, and then Rydia shows up to save the day. Here, however, we see a party full of minied party members. Why might that be the case?
Well, that has to do with debuff priority, or just
I usually call it status priority.
Yeah, status priority. So, when Golbez uses the hold spell on your party, if your party is already under a different status effect, the game will actually do a check to see if the status is above or below that level. In the event that your party is either minied, or if they're piggied, or if you're able to go and, like Chat has pointed out, like an R1 Black Mage, where you can go and cast Venom on your party, then what will happen is that hold will not actually affect anyone.
Yeah, so what the intent of that is to give your party an opportunity to get star barrels up, because as soon as the cinematic finishes playing, Golbez will start hurling viruses and lit 3s and fire 2s in that order. And as you can see by the reflected damage, they are quite powerful in this spot. normally the spot that Golbez is fought in, his magic spells are very weak to sort of give you an opportunity to recover your party and get through that fight with a minimum of fuss. But in higher magic boss spots like the CPU spot, those are terrifyingly powerful. So you want to give yourself as much of an opportunity as possible to be able to keep your party members up and reflect those spells back at him to let him deal enough damage to himself to trigger the ending cutscene.
Yep, because Golbez's reflected spells cannot trigger that script.
And in fact, reflected damage in general does not trigger scripts. This may prove to be important in various other fights we'll be seeing later on.
Yep, and we see on Possumorpheus' side, the toads being cast on the back Calbrina dolls to go and prevent that transformation.
Alright, Rhybon, having done his D-Machine grind, still in that boat of having nothing else on the blue planet that can be done, is now headed into Cave Evelyn to take the hook route.
You see both Sirens and Bacchus.
Ooh, that's a very good shop. Those Sirens early might have influenced the way they played the scene if they had seen them sooner. Though at the point where you've got the Darkness Crystal in hand, you've got this party, you're probably committed to the D-Machine grind as it is. The Bacchus lines will be very useful if we continue to rely mostly on physical party members, which at this point in time is just Kane and Sid.
Yeah, but as we're seeing on Possum's side, that Kane and Sid are heading for quite actually a decent number while under Berserk.
Yep. Berserk makes all the difference. So that's Odin as the second boss along the hook road. Normally the spot that's occupied by Ruicante. That's a bit of a stinky fight under normal hook road conditions. Right now we've got the levels and the experience to just power through that, but that could be a rather rude fight if you try taking it with the party composition levels that you normally have going down the hook road for the first time.
Yep, and well, I mean, with our runners having, like you said, done that D-Money grind, it's going to make this hook route a lot less complicated.
Yeah, which is a little bit sad because with Kane or with Edward in the party against Odin, you have the opportunity to do some very creative strategies that you're not going to get to see here.
Yep, and we see Possum going into his Golbez fight.
Yeah, and we can see Rydia in that top slot is fast enough to get that Venom cast out, so this party is now also immune to Hold Gas. And that is a blue robe in the King Queen Evelyn spot along the hook road, which we've already seen the All Gauntlet, so we know this is Water Hag.
Yep, I don't know if Rhybon's gonna have the 3 attacks necessary for this spot. It's just too strong.
Funnily enough, Water Hag along the hook road can actually be fairly threatening if you have minimal party members. Like if you have one party member here, this is actually a rather threatening fight just due to how strong the punches are.
Yeah, because Water Hag still will be relatively fast and relatively punchy.
Yep.
As I think that Sid took a punch for about 700 or 800 damage.
Yep. Now, imagine you have a single party member here with, say, even 1,000, 2,000 health, and since you've only got the one party member, it's just your speed versus Water Hag speed, and in either of these spots is probably going to be moving faster than you under most conditions.
Yep, and it's going to be a lot of pain.
Alright, here's Odin. We see Rhybon pull out the Bacchus line he just bought, and then give it to Kane. Odin gets the first hit in. But this spot has a little over 20,000 health. I don't remember the exact number. Kane hitting for, 1,000, 1,200. Kane is not going to be able to do this fight by himself, but we have Rydia, we have Nuke. Thank you, John Birkin in chat, for pointing out that it's 25,200 health in this spot. But with Rydia casting Nuke here, with the swings that Kane and Sid are doing, this fight will be over before Odin has a chance to use its Odin, aka Zentetsuken, attack.
Yep, and for those in our chat who are who are typically used to maybe seeing Odin just kind of come out with the Zantetsuken and whacking us for usually quad nines. The Zantetsuken is actually magic attack power driven. So if he's in a spot that's got relatively low magic power, you actually have the possibility to live through that.
Yeah, and oh no, it looks like Possum did not succeed in his first attempt to take out Gulbiz here, and on the second attempt only has Rydia poisoned, so this might not go very well either. Uh, Rhybon, meanwhile, having gotten through that Odin, elects to check who the boss at the top of the lower tower is and sees another Lunar Sparkle there. So we still have D-Lunars on the table. That might be the boss we're looking for. So it's possible that Rhybon will just park the Falcon in front of the tower and immediately go in to see who that is.
Yep, and for as much ground as we've covered so far, I'm kind of wondering where everything is.
Well, we know where Dark Knight Cecil is. He's in the Beigen spot in Baron Castle, so we'll need that Baron key if we want to go back for it.
No. Dark Knight Cecil's still in the Tower of Mysidia.
Yeah. Well, who says that Dark Knight Cecil can't be in two places at once?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we do see Rhybon land immediately. It looks like he is intent on going up this tower immediately. Meanwhile, this attempt on Gulbiz on Possum's side is going significantly better this time. That nuke gets the kill, in fact. Only Rydia is up here, but we're through that fight.
Perfectly fine.
Question in chat, Power Sprite. It was the Lunar Sparkle. Okay, but Possum is up the Hobbs check, but has lost a significant amount of time. Is behind the entire hook route at this point, more or less.
Yep, so it's kind of a question of, do you go and do the hook route, or do you face dive the moon?
Yeah, because we haven't yet seen any of the bosses we're looking for underground, and as I was describing earlier, there are a total of 8 boss checks gated by the Darkness Crystals. 6 of them are on the moon. We've seen the other 2. Those are the 2 giant boss checks. It looks like Possum is electing to also go down the hook route here.
Definitely a good choice there, where he'll go ahead and also find his Sirens and Bacchus, if he checked the upland shop, but away he goes.
Yeah, and as is being asked in chat, the Magus Sisters boss fight was in fact on Mount Hobbs, which Rhybon did check that spot, but was unable to get through the fight on his attempt at it, and has not gone back for it.
Yep, and we see on Rhybon's side, Monsieur le Doot-de-Doot. Monsieur le Doot-de-Doot-Doot-Doot.
Are we actually going to get any physical attacks here so we can get the slow here? Doesn't look like it. I'm sure, well, I mean, just for the sake of it, since we're probably not going to hear it otherwise.
Yes, because even if he doesn't do it, we know it exists.
Yep. Well, who knows? Possum might head up there at some point to also take the fight, but with some spells from Rydia with a few jumps from Kane, Rhybon is through that fight and gets the pass for his efforts. That's significant.
Spicy.
Yeah. Normally, so the pass, of course, opens up. Normally in the vanilla game, it opens up a nice little dance area. In Free Enterprise, it opens up a shortcut to Zemus, the final boss, which normally you have to go to the bottom of the moon for. So having that pass in hand makes moon checks more likely, because if you don't have it, you want to find your last boss on the moon so that you can then walk down to the Zemus fight. But this enables them to check moon spots much sooner, because they can then exit out, and if they find everything they're looking for, can just go over to Troya, turn in the pass, and go immediately to the Zemus fight.
Yep. And we see Possum getting into the Water Hag fight, using that amazing Lilith rod to its fullest advantages.
Yep. Meanwhile, Rhybon finds Karate, aka Yang, in the Super Cannon room, doing a phenomenal job of destroying the Super Cannon as usual.
You know, I kudos to Possumorpheus there using Psych on the Water Hag because it counts as an action against or towards the script, and
Yep.
it also replenishes Rydia's MP pool.
Well, we're going to get Rydia's MP pool replenished anyway going
Yeah.
into this next fight, but it's the thought that counts.
Exactly. It's to go ahead and display that you can do that against Water Hag.
Yep. So Rhybon is through that super cannon fight. When Rhybon leaves the tower, we're going to see the other key item that we get from doing this check, or rather the key item that we get from doing the super cannon check as a result of this cutscene which is about to play, which normally locks you out at the bottom of the tower and puts you back on the overworld. Here it just puts you on the Enterprise and hands you the key item.
Yep, which is actually a really efficient way to go about it, because this way you don't have to, go back up to the overworld, land your plane, then pick up the, your other ship. You just automatically get into it.
Yeah, which can lead to some interesting problems. Depending on where you've parked the Falcon, this is actually, I suppose, one of the other reasons that you see people parking the Falcon there a lot of the time is just cycles you back into the Enterprise. If you're not careful about what you're doing and you trigger one of the cutscenes that puts you back in the Enterprise, you can end up with the Falcon, say, blocking your tri-access and getting a parking ticket for it.
Yep, and being the first class member of flight school.
Yeah. Rhybon headed over to Dwarf Castle to see who the first boss was. It was Dr. Luge, who's not one of the bosses we're looking for, and so resets out of it to head down into the Fey March.
Yep, and Fey March is always going to be one of those locations where you really just want to go down there one time. That's a place you don't want to double dip because of how long of a walk it is.
Yeah, so if we've got the levels to not need to come back here. But to answer a couple of questions from chat, so the counter room key item check, it is set up like that on account of the hook. And in fact, if you have the vanilla key item locations on, you get the hook from exactly that check. And Dwarf 2, we have not seen yet, because actually, no, we have seen Dwarf 2 because we were in Zot earlier, and I don't remember who the boss was. Yeah, Dark Elf. Thank you, Dumpward.
Yep, and we see on Rhybon's side him picking up a package, as well as finding the Demus down here. Rhybon electing to not do Demus.
Yeah, which is, it's a lot of fights are fairly stinky there, especially in the Leviathan spot with its 30-some thousand hit points and the inability to do berserk things. We've got Rydia who can nuke things there, but that fight's still going to take a little bit. That might prove to be significant because with K summon on, that spot is itself a key item check, but with K no free on, D-Mist also gates a key item via Rydia's mother in Mist Village. So once you've killed D-Mist, you can go back there and pick up a key item from it.
Yep. So we do see that Rhybon went and faded it potentially for the time being, and taking a nap on a lunar whale.
This looks to me like Rhybon's heading up to the moon, which is what's going on.
Yep. So it kind of makes you wonder, will Possumorpheus, when he sees that D-Mist, actually, you know what? Knowing Possum, I feel like he is going to go ahead and take that D-Mist check after he gets on the ground.
Yeah, Possum is normally fairly thorough at clearing things here. So, yeah, there was a question in the chat about under what circumstances you want to clear the ice from Hobbs, and this has been answered in chat. With the normal flags in the free Enterprise, clearing that spot will actually get Rydia an additional summon. There's a flag to turn it back to its vanilla behavior of Rydia learning Fire 1 from doing that check, and with normal free Enterprise flags, it is a summon that you learn from doing that.
Yes, but you can't learn any summon from there.
Alright, Rhybon checks Cave Bahamut and sees Valvalis sitting on Bahamut's throne. It's not one of the bosses we're looking for, and so resets out of that. It looks like Rhybon is intent on face-checking the boss spots here. So we will see if that pays off. Rhybon is looking for, in principle, 4 additional bosses. We're hoping that he hasn't forgotten that the Mega Sisters are still sitting on Hobbs waiting for them to go back and defeat them.
Yep, and so question comes to mind of, you don't really have too many sort of gating key items you've only got a couple of bosses. Do you just face check the moon, or do you just, because you've done your grind, just kind of take them out as you go along?
Yeah, it's been a point of much discussion amongst a lot of the runners. I personally think that it's a little bit early for Rhybon to be face checking things here. Rhybon is still out the harp, the Baron key, most significantly, the Luca key. Um, all three of those will get at least one key boss, one boss behind those key items. And in the case of the Baron key, it's three bosses, one of which I already know is required. So when you're looking for at least well, now that I say four bosses, it actually is three additional bosses we're looking for, plus the Baron key to get us access to Dark Knight Cecil sitting in Baron. Especially because of that Baron key, I would still be looking for key items here.
Agreed. And well, I mean, with the exception of that Murasame altar with Wyvern, most everyone that has the potential to scare us is kind of off the table.
Yeah, and as Rhybon resets over that Wyvern at the Murasame altar, Possum, having completed Dwarf, has found the Adamant Rock and is now in Kokol's Forge shop to turn those in and get not only the super weapon that we're going to get from forging this, which is the God Hand, which would be very nice if we had a Yang to go with it. Which we doubt. But this also opens up this shop here, which has some of the highest tier equipment in the game that you can find in shops. So we haven't seen what's in here yet, but this can give us things like power shirts or glass helmets or defense swords, as it turns out.
That's actually a pretty nice shop.
Yeah, very, very nice equipment there. So that was protect rings, glass hats, defense swords, and ribbons. All of those are very nice things. Normally you want the ribbons for Golbez specifically to make you immune to the instant death attacks, but it's very handy for certain other fights as well.
Yep, some ribbon hats for the casters and glass hats for the melee. I like it.
Yeah, so Rhybon, still going through the moon, is electing to head up to the Crystal Sword altar before checking the three lower altars here, which is a pure top-down play. Most of the time, you will find runners will go directly to the bottom first because of the three bosses, and because you only want to walk up to the Crystal Sword altar. You don't necessarily want to walk down from the Crystal Sword altar. But it looks like this has paid off this time, because that's Keinatsu sitting at the Crystal Sword altar. That's one of the bosses we're looking for.
Yep, and Keinatsu is actually not that punchy, because we see, Borum taking a hit from him and living through it.
Yeah, of all the moon spots, this is probably the spot you want Keinatsu to appear in the most, as it has one of the lower hit point totals of bosses on the moon. And Keinatsu's wave attack is directly proportional in power to his current hit points. So you don't want to run into trouble on the element spot on the Giant, for example, because that 65,000 hit point wave will demolish your entire party in short order. Here, with the amount of damage that we've done already, just deal 700 to 800 damage.
Yep, which is perfect, because it'll just take Tella out, saving you the time, and, well...
Yeah, so, I mean, depending on where Keinatsu turns up, like on the hook route, for example, you may need to resort to very specific timing strategies with Thorn Rages or Blitz or other electrical attacks in order to prevent those waves from coming in at all. Here, we can just hit it until it dies. And interestingly, Possum is taking the Fey March fights here, so if there's value behind these fights, that might give Possum a bit of an advantage that I might not otherwise have.
Yep, it is actually a sizable gamble, but it also plays to Possum's playstyle, which is, if as efficient as possible to so if there's multiple opportunities for gaining an advantage, then it plays to these statistics. So normally, like with K-Summon, there's 2 checks, but because Demus, there's 3, and that's statistically speaking more opportunities to gain that advantage.
Yeah, and it also speaks to that lack of some of the gating key items we're looking for, that Baron key especially, that Sand Ruby, that Luca key, if it turns out to be important. So it could well be that Rhybon doesn't find anyone else that we're looking for up here on the moon, and we'll need to go back and hunt down some of those key items, maybe visit some of those altars that we haven't seen yet. Possum is through the Mylon and Friends fight, and gets only a Dragoon Helm for his troubles, plus the experience that we've got from having. We've already got plenty of experience from having done that D-Machine grind earlier.
Yeah, that's just a little bit more experience, you know, to, well, have more hit points, I guess.
Yeah, and Possum, as expected, goes immediately over to the Demus fight.
Yep, which is not going to be as scary because, as we're seeing, Rydia hit for 8,500 per nuke.
Yeah. Rhybon, meanwhile, finds what I believe here is the White Spear Altar, the Dark Imps. This is one of those free fights where none of these enemies have the boss bit set, so you can do things like cast off-slot stone and have it hit, and I'm sure Rhybon is fairly happy about that.
Yep, I mean, anytime that you land an off-slot stone is a good day.
And there's the Sand Ruby for Rhybon's troubles. Normally the Sand Ruby is, will get you a character check, but on this flag set it's more of a Sad Ruby because there's no character behind that check here, so it only acts as a key item, and that brings Rhybon to 8 key items, if I'm not mistaken. So this is Baigen at the Ribbon Altar. The Ribbon Altar normally gives a fair amount of experience. Occasionally you want to wait until you have 10 key items for taking this just to double the normal 100,000 experience you get from taking this fight. But this is one of our required bosses, so it's we're going to be taking it immediately.
Yep, and normally, under normal circumstances, if the Darkness Crystal was not had and our runners did go ahead and do the hook route, 10 key items, double experience, go ahead and do 68,000 experience per egg, but that's not really going to matter as much because, well, they've already done the grind. They don't need, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, more experience is always nice, but it's not going to be a necessity. And Possumorpheus is through that Demus fight. We'll go ahead and see what he'll get for his troubles.
Only a spoon. It's a little late to be taking any at this point.
Yeah, but the spoon still can sell for gold.
Well, it's also a key item, so it might give Possum a very slight advantage in any further grinding that we're going to be doing. But that's there's no value in the Fame Arch today, as it turns out.
No,
However, we still have the item from the Demus kill to check, so there is still the chance that that item turns out to be important.
Yep. Will it be a missed opportunity? Stay tuned for next time on Free Enterprise.
Yeah, Outlook foggy. Try again later.
And it looks like, well, for the moment, well, I was gonna speak too soon apparently for an arm grind, but
Well, we do have a bit of an arm grind going here. This is at least the second pair of arms that we're defeating here. Alright, Possum heads up to Mist. Here's Rydia's mom, and let's see if this is an item that turns out to be important. That's only a pink tail. While that is a key item, normally you would turn in the pink tail if you get an adamant armor. However, adamant armors are disabled on this flag set, so that just turns into a random high tier item. The traditional running jokes of the pink tail on this flag set are that it's either a white shirt until it isn't, or it's a crystal sword until it isn't. But while Possum is here, he is turning in the package, which is about 2.5 minutes of cutscenes for a single boss check. This is rather cheeky on Possum's part here.
And I appreciate it. Is that Rydia burning down?
That is Rydia burning down her own village. Wow.
Talk about spicy.
Oh, and that's the D-Lunars at the Masamune altar. There is a lot of value on the moon today, folks.
And definitely. And we see Titan being summoned by a piggy.
Yeah, because the piggies really like shaking things up in this flag set currently.
You know, that's the one of the little 3 piggies that he's the piggy that went home only to find it destroyed, and so he's like, you know, you destroy my home, I'm gonna destroy your home.
Yeah, and to answer the question from chat, The pigs that you see here are the result of the see no earned flag being turned on this flag set, meaning that any gated character checks, meaning not Mysidia, not Watery Pass, not the one on Ordeals, and not the one in Damcian, do not give characters. So in cases where we still need that absent character to be doing something, we get piggies instead.
Yeah, and we see on Rhybon's side him taking full advantage of the reflected D-Breads to have the D-Lunars turn themselves into frogs.
Yeah, while the D-Lunars are normally immune to status effects, it turns out that their own breath attack can actually bypass that immunity and inflict the frog status on themselves.
And we see elements.
That's not the value that Possum is looking for here. It would have been nice if that was just plain Rubicante, but no, it's all of the elements, and Possum is out of checks to do on the blue planet.
Yep. Except he's gonna go and do.
Yeah, Possum hasn't done tower yet.
No. Well, actually, now that I think about it, so Possum is going to do the tower check. However, I don't believe either of our runners have set up the Sheila 1 check.
You're correct. Neither of them has even been in Self Cave as yet. We do see Rhybon picking up the Luca key from the D-Lunars here. So we know that DKC is sitting in Baron. We're going to need the Baron key to get access to him. We know Rhybon hasn't gone back and fought the Mega Sisters on Hobbs. Hopefully he remembers that he needs to do that. But that leaves us wondering where Rubicante is. We have seen every other... We have seen where all of the rest of the bosses we're looking for are.
Yep, but we still have a couple of items that would otherwise be getting. So, like, obviously we haven't found the Baron key. No one's found the Twin Heart. So those... And I know that Rhybon just got his Luca key. So there are quite a few checks for bosses that could still have that Rubicon.
Yep, and as has been pointed in the chat, there are still a couple of outstanding checks in the blue planet that Sheila 1 check from seeing Yang in Self Cave and going back to his wife Sheila in Fabul to enable that. And the Luca key itself opens up the check at the bottom of Sealed Cave. Normally on the in the middle game and the Blue Moon check, you don't actually need to go through Sealed Cave to get that item via the Warp Glitch, but the Warp Glitch is disabled in this flag set. So we actually need to go the vanilla way and go to the bottom of Sealed Cave in order to find the item and the boss. Well, we always need to go through Sealed Cave to find the boss here, but we need to go down the long way in order to find out what the key item here is.
Yep, and with Possum on his side having done checks like the Fey Mars, the Demon's Turn in, the package check, he's got to be thinking that he's behind a little bit after having done those checks and gotten those zongs. Esker, and if you were to put yourself in Possum's shoes, do you feel there's anything that you specifically could do to go and try and make up a little bit of time, or do you just kind of keep going?
To be honest, if it was me and I had just done the D-Machine run, I probably would have just headed straight up to the moon at this point. Like, I know Possum is doing this because he wants to be as thorough as possible before he takes the opportunity to go up and check the moon.
Agreed. And, well, we'll see what Luca Key here has for us in store, whether it's a key item or a zonk.
Oh, we can get underground now.
We can go to the moon. Wait, we can get what's that thing that called when you drop in the well?
Well, that's just Leviathan as the boss in Seal Cave, and Rhybon resets out of that. We can no longer get underground for whatever reason. So that just leaves. So this is Rhybon doing the package check.
Oh.
Which is, this is going to cost Rhybon the same 2.5 minutes that it cost Possum earlier, because we know that there's no value here.
Yep.
Okay.
And again,
So-
we see Rydia burning down her own village.
Yeah. Rhybon is doing the package check. Possum is heading back down tower, having turned in both of those checks. I suspect that, given that we haven't seen the Sheila 1 check, and I believe that is going to be one of the last outstanding checks on the blue planet, that Possum is just going to make straight for Self Cave from here, and set up that check, and then go and see what Sheila has for us. Once Rhybon sees that there's no value at the package here either, is very likely to be doing something similar.
Yep, and although there is the idea that Possum does not do Luca because he's already done longer checks and hasn't gotten any rewards from them, so I think he's in the idea now that he's got to go up to the moon.
Yeah.
That's 8 or that's the 6 checks, and like something's got to be up there, but it does raise the question. Will he do the same thing that Rhybon did and just face check these rooms, or will he be going ahead and just kind of taking the bosses as he goes through them?
I believe that Possum is going to take as many of these bosses as he can. He is not one to leave checks undone.
Agreed. Because we still don't know where that Baron key is. It could be in Cave Bahamut. It could be at that Murasame altar. Couple of checks that Rhybon did go ahead and kind of save scum out of.
Alright, and Rhybon finds the bad news that there's no value in behind the package today, which this should, in principle, be the moment where Rhybon goes and sets up the Sheila 1 check, because unless he wants to go back to the moon, there's nothing else to check here. Well, of course, now that I say that, I remember that Rhybon has not done the Fame Arch bosses yet, which we also know that there's no value down here. So on account of Rhybon having just headed up to the moon, is now in the bind where he seems to have forgotten that the Mega Sisters are in Hobbs, unless he's just looking for that one last boss before he goes back and turns them in. Is still missing some of those key items he's looking for, and doesn't know, having not done these checks earlier, doesn't know that there's no value here yet.
Yep, and I talk about having potentially having been behind, but our runners are kind of tracing each other's footsteps, and we see on Possumorpheus' side him going up against Valvalis in that Cave Bahamut, which on the moon, that is the only spot where Valvalis does not have perfect magic defense.
Yep, normally Val in Tornado form will have perfect magic defense. There are a handful of spots, boss spots, where Val does not have that magic defense, and you need to rely on Kane to knock Val out of Tornado form in order to bring that defense down. This is not one of those spots. Rydia can nuke Valvalis directly through that Tornado form. As it happens, we have the Kane here on hand in the event that we ran into Val in a much nastier spot. But in most cases, you need to either have Kane or you need to rely on physical attackers who can hit through the immense amount of physical evasion that Val has in Tornado form.
Yep, and we see the nukes flying, the berserk swings from Sid going, and Kane soaring through the sky. And this fight should be over
right now.
Alright, we'll see if Cave Bahamut lives up to its nickname of Cave Value.
That's not the value we're looking for here. That having been said, as I do think that we are going to see Possum take the rest of these boss fights, and this might boil down to, firstly, who finds the Baron Key first? Secondly, does Rhybon remember that he needs to go back and defeat the Mega Sisters? Or does he find Rubicante first?
Well, and that's going to be a tough one to kind of gauge and guess at, because, I mean, we've seen a lot here in the booth, and we don't have a whole lot of knowledge for those gating key items.
Yeah. Well, we're rapidly running out of spots that we can check. So the remaining key items gating key items that we're looking for, at least one of them will need to be either behind one of the 5 boss spots in Lunar Subterrane or from Sheila 1 specifically.
Yep. And it's effective because right now it's effectively go mode -2. I say the -2 because Baron and Twin Heart. Yeah. I mean, thinking about it, it's got to be behind Twin Heart or Baron. With any luck, it'll be just all right there at Baron.
Yeah, we're not going to be in go mode until we find that Baron key, because there are 3 boss checks behind it, and we know one of them is Dark Knight Cecil.
Yep, which regardless of where DKC is, his Dark Waves will still hit regardless of your level, because those Dark Waves will punch through any defense that you got.
Okay, so here's that Wyvern. Possum has the party set up as he does right now to be able to get that Star Veil off on Rydia. Rydia will be able to solo the rest of this fight if she's the only one standing, but we've got Porum up as well for this. Here comes the Mega Nuke. Rydia and Porum survive. 1 or 2 nukes from Rydia will end this fight. Of course, Wyvern will put a wall up as its next action, but Possum has sufficient time to let Rydia sneak a nuke in before that happens.
Yep, and Porum with a white cast, I saw.
Yep. The white cast doesn't go off in time to get through that nuke. However, Rydia does still have that Star Veil up, so we see the reflected nuke instead of the direct nuke. This white will bounce off of Rydia and hit Wyvern, probably get the kill with enough damage.
Yep, with that life stuff, I think it will.
Yep, and it sure does. Okay, Rhybon has cleared those 2 Fame March fights. Is probably going to head up and check D-Mist. Possum gets the pan from that Wyvern fight. So it's actually very fortunate that Possum finds that, because he now has the perfect excuse to go and check Sheila 1 and turn in that pan. So it's also fairly likely that, yeah, we see the save. We're going to see Possum go and turn in that pan immediately. If there's no value, he just resets to that save and heads back after the moon to continue doing checks.
Yep. Although, it kind of makes you wonder. Do you just go and save the pan for later after full clearing the moon, or just go down and do the pan?
Well, yeah. Here's the thing. We want that Baron key, right? We still want to be doing key item checks at this point. So it makes perfect sense that you follow up on these key item checks immediately and see if there's value. If there's not, you just go back to what you were doing before. So now both of our runners are in Sylph Cave. Rhybon just here to set up the Sheila 1 check because he doesn't have that pan yet. Possum gets to do the single dip here. We'll get to do the pan block and get the key item check from Bonking Young. And then we'll head to Fabul afterwards to get both Sheila 1 and Sheila 2. So Possum gets 3 checks for this instead of just 1 for having found that pan before he came down here.
Yep, and this is one of the very few checks where it's perfectly acceptable and okay to do a double dip. Because it's not uncommon for Sheila to give you the pan.
Yep, which is nice the vanilla location of the pan. And that's the Twin Heart from the pan bonk. That's... Ooh, this is getting interesting. Alright, so Rhybon is the first to turn in Sheila 1 here. So we'll see if this has value, and we'll also see in a few moments if Sheila 2 has value. That's the Baron key from Sheila 1. That's huge.
Okay, again, I'm gonna go ahead and find out that I was thinking it was going to be the Baron key from Sheila. I'm just gonna think what I'm going to prophesize in my head things into existence for these runs. All right.
Okay.
We'll see if Possum is able to luck out and catch up on some of the checks. And that's just an elixir.
Yeah, Rhybon's going directly to Baron here with that Baron key in hand. We're going to see DKC. So the best possible outcome for Rhybon here is that Ruby is one of the 2 remaining bosses here, because that just puts him in go mode immediately. The worst possible outcome is that it is not, and he's forgotten the Mega Sisters are on Hobbs, because that means he's going to go hunting for wherever Ruby is, not forgetting that he hasn't actually defeated the Mega Sisters yet.
Yep, or coming up with the idea that oh hey, I need some more key items. Where are they at? Because
yeah, well, as it turns out, to the dismay of our restreamer, Possumorpheus is going to turn in the Twin Harp, is on his way down to the bottom of Cave Magnes to encounter the Dark Elf and have Edward come to the rescue with what I understand is going to be a special performance for tonight.
Yep. So I have asked Possum about this before in the past, and he is quoted to say that he will do the Twin Harp when it's required. And given that he got the Twin Harp from himself, his characters are already at a low critical HP point to where he'll be able to get through the first phase of the Dark Elf with almost no time at all.
Yeah, the absolute ideal routing here is that you do the Twin Harp into Zot, which has already been done, which puts you outside of Baron. So the ideal is that you have the Twin Harp, the Earth Crystal, and the Baron Key and haven't checked any of them at the same time, which just lets you check all three of them in rapid succession. Rhybon is leaving Baron Castle. It looks like he has remembered where the Mega Sisters are and is heading there to get his own go mode.
Yeah, now that I think about it, I think actually running out the way you came in is much faster than just going through that Baron.
Yeah, it can be even if you defeated the Odin Throne boss, but we now temporarily pause this broadcast to bring you a very special brand new performance by the one, the only DJ Spoony B. Enjoy. For those not familiar with the tune or that missed the name, that was Give Me All Your Love from The World Ends With You. But as we have that performance, then we get this item from the cave, which is just a rune axe. Rhybon has gone back and defeated the Mega Sisters and now has 7 of 7 bosses defeated, has the crystal in hand. It is go time. With the pass in hand, we are going to see a beeline for Troya to turn in that pass and head directly to the Zeromus fight.
Yep, and we see Possumorpheus with his Baron Key going over to hopefully, grab a couple more bosses.
All right,
we know that Dark Knight will be in there.
Yeah, we're starting to see these mysterious flags pop up in chat. I don't. While it might be late in the evening in Eastern time here, it's a couple of hours earlier for me here. So I don't think it's nap time. What might these flags mean?
I don't think our chat is talking about speaking in German for like Z flags.
The flag.
The flags.
Yes. Yeah. So
this I was gonna say this is for because we can't move Zeromus around in the fight, but so we go ahead and just tell him that he can cosplay. He can put on funny costumes. It is that time of year though. And how many? We have a lot of sprites to choose from.
The latest number I've heard is more than 570.
Yeah, that was the last number that I heard. I'm waiting for the over 600, but I feel like it's not far off.
All right, but that leads us to a question that we like asking at this point in the run. And in the name of the Red Moon, who are we punishing tonight?
SpongeBob SquarePants. Whose seats shall get yeet?
All right.
Drum roll.
Survey says.
Grr. Alright. Oh, it's the guy from the end of the Buffy credits.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done. Zemus.
Golbez gets the last laugh after all.
Ah ha ha. You've heard of ha ha ha, but have you heard of Scala ha ha? Right there with for our Final Fantasy 14 players, Scala ha Brea.
Okay.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah. Okay. So I actually do get the chance to point this out. Do you remember, chat, me saying earlier that reflects do not counter scripts? Reflected spells do not trigger scripts on enemies. As it turns out, Zemus is intended to have more health that the game can support. So once you've dealt a certain amount of direct damage to Zemus, there's actually a script on Zemus's part that triggers an HP refill. If you deal exclusively reflected damage to Zemus, or at least no direct damage past about 41,000 health, you can actually skip that refill. We're seeing some physical hits from Sid and Taint here intermittently, but if you do deal enough reflected damage to Zemus, about 61,000 hit points worth, don't deal direct damage past that, you can actually skip the HP refill and shorten the fight significantly.
Yep, but it's very close, and that you want to be careful with spells like Virus or Venom, even Vampire with its ticks can cause Golbez's script to refill.
Yep.
Alright, we see Possum going down into the Odin Throne.
Be very interested to see if there's value down here or not, or even value on the main throne, because we still don't know where Rubicante is. And
Speaking
lo and
of,
behold, that's Rubicante at on the throne, the Odin throne. But I think it's I think it's too late for Possumorpheus here.
Well, I mean, a Big Bang, well, any kind of a roll face tip, or if can go ahead and, I don't know, can roll the wrong way or roll just a little too high, and Rydia's nukes don't hit quite as hard.
That's it. With that last reflected nuke, ladies and gentlemen, and our wonderful dedicated viewers, that is the end for Zemus on Rhybon's side. Rhybon has taken the second game in this round and is your full moon, full moon champion for this bracket of the tournament, with a final time of 1 hour, 33 minutes, and 56 seconds. GG's to Rhybon.
GG's to Rhybon. We'll see if Rhybon is up for an interview. And by the dinging in my ears, I hear multiple dings. Rhybon and Possumorpheus, GG's to you both.
Hey Blue, thanks. And GG's Possum.
GG's Rhybon. Greetings, y'all.
Greetings and salutations. Go for it, Ezra.
So the big question that I have, and I'm sure that's on a lot of our minds at this point, Rhybon, is what ultimately I think made the game for you here is immediately after completing that D Machine grind, at the 40-50 minute mark into the seed, and you basically immediately went into face check mode, and you were up on the moon much sooner. You, without even the Baron key in hand, without the Luca key in hand, with the Twin Harp in hand, and you just went through and you face checked, and as it turned out, there was a lot of value up on the moon. So why make that choice when you did? With so many outstanding key items, with what you would have known where Dark Knight Cecil was, you would have known where the Mega Sisters was. You still had 3 outstanding bosses you were looking for at that point.
First and foremost, I'm afraid to say I forgot who was at Baigan. So when DKC came walking out when I used that Baron key, I'm like, oh, I should have remembered this. But the main reason I was on the moon earlier is because the path will make you do wild things. That path coming from the top of the tower means I can go dive to the bottom of the moon and not have to worry about walking the LST a second time. And with the amount of bosses outstanding, I think I was missing 4 or 5 at that point. Well, probably 4. I'm like, well, the moon probably has to have something. So I'll go clear the bottom of the moon. I'll clear the top if it's free. It ended up not being free. But I'll clear the bottom, see what I get, see if I get any bosses. If I kill the bosses, I might get a key item that will chain into something. It ended up being the Luca key to everyone's favorite key item this tournament, but not a whole lot of love. I just left that moon at the end with a Luca key, a package, and a dream, and it ended up not being the dream I was looking for.
So conversely, Possum, we saw a much more I dare say it's more characteristic of the style you've been showing throughout the tournament. But instead, you were far more systematic about the checks on the blue planet. Basically, wanted to clear through as much as you possibly could before heading up to the moon. And is that just normally how you approach things, or is there a specific reason you were doing that this time around?
So it's kind of a twofold answer. I mean, the long and the short of it is the D-Machine grind went south because I left Ice Armor on Sid. It screwed up my turn order, made it a much longer grind. Was a little bit flustered about that, thinking about what I wanted to do, which led to me just forgetting that Star Veils existed against Golbez, turning that into a wipe. So that's 3 to 4 minutes against an opponent like Rhybon. I simply can't get back if I play straight up. So I had to go into full gamble mode, which is why you saw things like the package, which is why the D-Mist was taken and all of those things. It's why I didn't route the tower first, even with a sparkle up top, once getting underground. It was basically knowing that maybe in a perfect world I can make up 1 minute to 2 on Rhybon throughout the entire rest of the course of a seed if we play in a straight line and do the same things. I can't make up 3 or 4. We've done that song and dance. It can't happen. So, yes, I'd like to clear Earth stuff first, but the driving factor here was, in game 1, he went to the moon very early and hit pay dirt, and I figured that would pretty much be the same thing he does this time, and it turns out it was. So I knew if the value was up there, I was dead. The value was in fact up there, and I was in fact dead. It was just a matter of time. So it's just one of those things where it was self-inflicted wounds. Like I just can't make those mistakes and think I'm gonna win. That was why the checks were made in the order they were done. It's why the non-required Val was taken, why the non-required Wyvern was taken, and then going to the Harp of all things. Sorry, not sorry, Harumph. After getting the pan from Wyvern. So that was the driving factor behind everything. Is you got to go into gamble mode. You got to be willing to win by 5 or lose by 20, because if you play in a straight line, you're 100% guaranteed to lose.
Yep, and that's kind of what we were thinking here in the booth. That's because like I know that I've learned quite a bit from you yourself, and seeing those checks like the package and Twin Harp, the D-Mist turn in, because normally you do the efficient thing where it's like, okay, I've got 3 possible chances at the Fate March to go and pull ahead, and then when we start kind of see you diverge from that particular playstyle, it's full, like you said, full on gamble mode.
Yep.
Yep. At any point prior to like the D-Machine grind, was there any thought to maybe keeping Edward there?
If the spoon showed up, absolutely. But until the spoon shows up, Edward is a liability. Sid with a rune axe, that's one of his best weapons. Kane with a blizzard spear is fine. They're both far better than Edward, unless he gets exactly the spoon. Not really a consideration.
And for that matter, and I'm pretty sure that I know the answer to this question already, but no Cecil, is the agreement still in effect?
It was. We pretty much decided last night that for the entirety of the series, we would just continue dropping our starters to ramp up the difficulty a little bit and maybe show people what we can do with a potato party. And we kind of had a little bit of potato party today. And imagine if that Darkness Crystal was not at Rat Tail and we had to do that hook route and all that with the levels we had and the characters we had. It would have been quite a challenge.
Well, I would have loved to see another Kangerstruck personally, which we would have had the setup for. Maybe go back and take that Edward, but it was not to be.
Yeah, I'm astonished at the level of skill shown throughout this seed. I mean, we saw a lot of different playstyles and varying tactics used throughout the seed. Any additional thoughts on this seed, or just kind of how it was run?
Well, I just have to say one big thing. First of all, thank you, Possum. I mean, I started playing this game about a year and a half ago. I just got my butt stomped on the ladder after watching Lolly Ho League. And I'm like, well, how the heck do I play this game? Hey, Possum is streaming. He's streaming this game. Let's see what he's doing. And I just peppered you with questions for like months until the Pink Puff League started. And thankfully, and I'm very appreciative that you didn't get tired and tell me to go away, because I'm just asking you all these obvious questions. And it really helps my development. I said before, and I'll say again, you taught me like 90% of what I know about this game. I mean, I've learned a lot from Pancrath. I've learned a lot from Martin. I've learned a lot from PK, Plumeria, and many others who have answered all my questions. But I pretty much model my playstyle after you, Possum, because, I mean, you were pretty much my mentor at the start of the game and still are today. So thank you.
I just want to chime in for a moment and say, I dare say that's true of many of us, both here in the booth and in chat as well. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely my pleasure. And, I'm happy that you were able to find your way here, to be crowned the champion, to take all of those things and to really put them to good use. So I really do appreciate, you having those questions and then not just asking them to ask them, but to ask them to put them into practice. So, the best students are the ones that are inquisitive. And honestly, I could not be happier if it was not me winning this, for it to be somebody else. So I will say, I am going to dip out of the booth. There's, one or two more things I want to say before I dip out, but I want Rhybon to have this moment, for him to be coronated as the new king of Zemus Zone. The first is, want to thank everyone behind the scenes for the entirety of the Red Moon waxing portion, the Blue Moon waxing, which is nearly finished, and everything else that'll happen, going forward. All of the folks on the admin team, the restream team, everyone's been wonderful. Tonight, of course, as well, Dubward tracking, Harumph restreaming, Grunt and Blue Wizard on comms, Scala doing the admin work. And then the last thing that I just want to mention real quick, and I apologize to those looking forward to this, but I will be removing myself from the waning bracket. I will not participate in the waning finals. So that will basically be a match between whomever comes out of there. I personally want that to be their tournament. This was my tournament. I did not win in the finals, so I don't want to take that spotlight from other folks who are deserving after making that run. So I will not be playing any more in ZZ5. Apologies, folks, but I'll still be in the booth and, behind the scenes. So that's all I got. I want y'all to have a fantastic evening. And Rhybon, heck of a series, man. GG's, dude. Great tournament. Looking forward to more wonderful things from you.
Yeah, appreciate it, Possum. I will see you on the ladder, I'm sure.
But Possum! I had something saved for you!
It's okay. We'll figure it out later. Bye, y'all.
Okay, bye!
Yes, that additional voice we're now hearing is our fearless community leader, Scala Kitty.
Hi everyone. One of my favorite things that I get to do is I get to congratulate our champions. I love congratulating our champions. Rhybon, I don't think I can really follow up after Possum, who basically has brought a tier to everyone's eye, and that tear will go and mix in with his garbage juice. Rhybon, you ran an absolutely amazing tournament, and I could not be prouder to have you be our Red Full Moon champion. I am sure that you will definitely you'll definitely make the best of this as you have been. You have been an absolutely amazing member of the community, and just you bring such wonderful energy, and it has been fantastic to watch you rise and get better. And really, that's what I really enjoy seeing. As someone who's sort of been here from, basically the ground floor, watching, people, sort of the theme of this tournament, waxing and waning. And I'm so glad that we have someone like you as our waxing champion. You represent it so perfectly.
Thanks, Kyle. I really appreciate it. I'm just happy that, I just a year and a half ago, I was learning the ropes in the Pink Puff League. Never thought I would make a final, let alone win a final, whether it's a ZZ5, a ZZ tournament, or the spring tournament. So yeah, this is a huge surprise, and my only regret really is not being able to play anymore. But it's time for other people to play.
Absolutely, and the thing is, now we get to have more of you in the booth, which is also always a joy. If you want to.
More free enterprise after dark. Well, you shouldn't have.
But yeah, I feel this is an absolutely wonderful cap to the Red Moon waxing bracket. It's going to be really fun to see who our other champion will be. All of our other champions, I should say, because we still have 3 more to crown, which is the amazing aspect of this tournament to me, is that we get to walk away with 4 champions, and it makes me so excited to see who it's going to be.
3 more champions.
Wow, Mom! Why does your tournament let you have 4 champions?
Because I'll do that. Wow.
Exactly. So thank you all so much for joining us, whether it was here live or later on YouTube. It's been really, really wonderful, and I think we need to bring all this good energy somewhere. So where are we taking it?
Yeah, so as Scott was alluding to, while this broadcast may be in, while I might have crowned one of our champions tonight, we are not done tonight, and we are not done with this tournament in general. But to get the first of those out of the way, so that I have time to talk about everything else, we are going to be sending our wonderful viewers tonight over to the Queen of the Pink Puffs, the one, the only Asuka424, who is running the Pink Puff League off-season acing. And if you give me just a moment, I'll pull up the code for that, just in case you're planning on running that yourself at some point. But we have, tomorrow, we'll have another match in the Red Moon winning bracket between Flammarian Knight and Coffee and Chocobos. And of course, next week, we still have the Blue Moon finals to get through, not to mention the Blue Moon waxing finals, that is, not to mention all of the remaining waning bracket matches that we'll have throughout the rest of the tournament. So, plenty more free enterprise to go.
Yeah, I literally took all the words out of my mouth. But that
thank
is
you.
why we can commentate.
Yes, well, thank you to you, Blue Wizard. Thank you, Esgrunt. Thank you to Harumph and to Dubword. And, of course, once again, congratulations to you, Rhybon. You absolutely deserve it. So let's go bring all this good energy over to Asuka.
Yes, give her all the praises for being amazing and all that. Stay tuned for next time.
Yes, have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Night, everyone.
Also, don't forget to go ahead and check out our runners and everyone doing everything behind the scenes.